want to talk about Hibernate today. So I think most of you must aware of it. If you know, just feel like it is like a kind of brush up. If you don't know, it will help you. Okay. So one basic example I will cover from Hibernate. Okay. So that you can imagine how Hibernate will work. And to learn it more in depth, you can reach out to me. I will help you if you want to know complete Hibernate framework. But really, it doesn't matter if you know or don't know. Basics of Hibernate also should be enough. Okay, because in advanced Spring Boot, most of the ORM logic is avoided. Just you should know how to map your POSO classes to table. So there you should learn, to at least to do that task in Spring based applications. Okay, you should know what is table, and for that table, if I want to do CRUD operations using ORM, what all things I need to create. That much at least you should learn. But before going to there, okay, before going to there, okay, so basically I want to start the Spring ORM. Okay, Spring ORM model. So as part of Spring ORM, Spring providing support to integrating with ORM frameworks. So where and what and why I need this ORM. So far we learned IOC and simple JDBC. So here I have again a requirement, like I have a form, getting name, email address, what we have done so far using JDBC or JDBC template. Instead of form, we just enter data from controller, but when we do end-to-end use cases, we will use forms also. Just assume you have a form and you are sending this data, and you have controller. You know how to write these controllers, at the rate controller you will be using. And here you will have post method, and you will be getting data of name, email and address. As soon as you receive the data from form, you will be calling service class. So you know how to implement services. You will be implementing your service classes with at the rate service. And here you have service method, something like create name, email address input. And to use this service class, you will be auto wiring it here at the rate auto void of your service, so that you can able to call your service class methods. And service class want to connect with the DAO, so you will be implementing a DAO class using at the repository. And here you will be having all the CRUD operations: save, update, delete. For example, if you take save, name, email address, when I want to save from here, I can use at the rate auto void with the data source, or I can use JDBC template or named parameter JDBC template. By using data source, if I auto-wire data source here, I need to write plain JDBC code here. From data source, I need to get a connection, then I need to create a statement, then prepared statement. All that stuff I need to write. So using direct data source, I don't recommend you. In case if you want to write the JDBC kind of code, don't use this. Okay, the much recommended is JDBC template or named parameter JDBC template. The much recommended one is JDBC template or named parameter JDBC template. We can go with any one of it. Okay, So, and if you want to use this repository from service class, you will be auto wiring repository. Will be auto wiring repository class also here, whichever DAO you implemented, and that reference is useful to call your DAO methods. Till here we are clear, right? We are we all are clear here. How to use the data source, how to use JDBC template or named parameter JDBC template. And for this objects creation, we will be using one more extra class, which is configuration class. At the rate configuration class we will be using, right? At the rate configuration. Just a minute. Okay. So just a minute, please. Yeah. So configuration class we will be creating to create our data source object. At the rate bean we will use, right, to create our data source. Using at the rate bean we will be creating data source object. How can I avoid this extra one? So using at the rate bean data source you can create, and you can create a JDBC template or named parameter JDBC templates here, and these beans can be auto-wide here, and that beans you can use here for doing your CRUD operations, and later you can auto-wire your repository bean into service, and you can call your repository methods, and to call the service methods you can auto-wire your service here, and you can call your service methods. And we will learn how to connect to front end with the back end later. Now coming to Spring ORM, where it will help us and what is the use of it. So far we saw, how to use JDBC here to connect with the database tables. To save our data, we need database and database tables we will be having here. And to connect with the data tables, we learned data source and Spring JDBC approach. But if you go with the traditional JDBC, if you go with the traditional JDBC or JDBC template, they can't able to provide features beyond CRUD operations. Beyond CRUD operations, they don't provide any additional features. If you go with the JDBC template or named parameter JDBC template, Spring JDBC, it will reduce the complexity of JDBC. Spring JDBC can reduce the complexity of JDBC, and exceptions it will avoids the exception, compile time exceptions, right? Usually while writing JDBC code, we will be handling so many compile time exceptions that will be avoided, and the connection leakage issues it will avoid, connection leakages, connection leakage problems it will avoid, very less code, very less code. These all are the advantages that you see when you compare with the traditional JDBC, normal JDBC. But if you choose any ORM, if you choose any ORM, right, ORM framework for CRUD operations like Hibernate, if you choose ORM for doing CRUD operations, what features they have, what are all the benefits that they are providing for DAO implementation. When you choose ORM, when you choose ORM, we need not to write, no need of, or it will avoid SQL queries. Complete SQL queries will be avoided. So I can say no SQL queries, no SQL queries, no SQL queries. ORM is having no SQL queries. Without SQL query, you can do all CRUD operations. Without SQL query, you can do all CRUD operations. CRUD will be handled by CRUD operations will handle with POSO classes. CRUD operations will be handled by or with POSO classes. Simple POSO class we need to create, and that POSO class we can save it into database directly. Just all we need to do is we need to create POSO classes and we should do mapping with the tables. So it will avoid SQL queries. So how we will do CRUD operations? All your CRUD operations you can handle by using simple POSO classes. No SQL, nothing is required. Beyond that, beyond that, ORMs will provide auto primary key support generators. Auto primary key generators. Usually, when you implement any application, right, we never ask enter ID from the front end. Have you seen that asking a ID from the front end while doing movie ticket booking or bus ticket booking? You will be getting one unique transaction ID, but application will never ask you to enter a ID. You may book tickets or you may book products from online or do anything, or you may sign up into Google or Facebook. It never asks you to enter a ID. Primary key value it will never ask. Is that means there is no primary key in the background in Facebook database or Gmail database or in Amazon database? Are they not using primary keys? They will use. Without primary key, tables are not recommended to have in database. Primary key is mandatory. Primary keys are mandatory. So without primary keys, we will be having no database tables. Mostly, okay, 99% tables will have primary keys. So if you have such primary keys in the database table, and if you are not asking from the front end, who should generate it? If you go with the plain JDBC style, you should generate it. So far, in our example, what we have done, we have taken input, ID input also. But in general, in real time, user never pass any ID. So if user not passing the ID, if you want to generate it, then you need to write again lot of code in your JDBC by using sequence or by using kind of select maximum ID from the database. You need to do plus one implementation. All that stuff you need to write. But in ORM like Hibernate is providing auto primary key generators. When you pass name, email, address, if your table is having ID also, you need not to bother. My table is having ID, name, email, address. Do I need to worry about ID? Means nothing. Hibernate will generate an ID for you. Hibernate can generate ID for you. This ID automatically will be inserted by Hibernate. This framework will do it for you. Framework you call or you call tool or whatever it is. It do primary key generation for you. And what else you have? Auto DDL support also they have given. Auto DDL support. Auto DDL support means automatic tables creation. Tables, let's say if you don't have schema, if you don't have tables in your database, but you know POSO classes. Usually, without table, we will never have an application. During application designing itself, your architect or your team leads or technical leads will identify the tables, or yourself. You may identify the table first, and you will be creating table in the database. And that table equivalent POSO class we will write in Hibernate. How tables are different, Java classes are different. How we can create equivalent POSO classes? We can create. If table is having columns like ID, name, email, your object also can have these properties as variables. The columns of database table can be properties of your POSO class. And you can map your POSO class with table. We can do mapping of POSO class with table. In POSO class, we can mention what is the table name, and your POSO class properties need to map to which columns. That all we can do it in POSO class. So auto DDL support means if you can create POSO class, automatically POSO class will generate table in database. Your POSO class equivalent table will be generated automatically. So that auto DDL support also we have. Usually this is not recommended. Okay, we generally create tables and we map it. In case if it is fine to generate tables using auto DDL, you can generate it. And you need not to worry about connection pool. Okay, so default connection pool provided, default connection pool provided. By default connection pools has been provided here, so that you need not to worry about connection pool. Default connection pools are provided in Hibernate. Default connection pools has been provided. And so they avoided exceptions. Compile time exceptions. No compile time exception. So you need not to bother about any compile time exceptions. And they given caching feature also. Caching. Let's say you are reading products data. Consider Amazon.com or something else, or your Facebook. So if you see this products information, it is loading here. If you see this section, keep shop for iPhone, Apple smartwatch, plates, and flip flops. Again refresh it. Again refresh it. Refresh it. Let me click continuous F5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Almost I have made 50 refreshes. So 50 times I tried to reload this page. 50 times, literally 50 times I tried reloading this page. But if you see this section, did they change anything? This section or this section? Same products data I am seeing. What that means? Same data I am seeing. And is it hitting a database 50 times? Let's say if they are using cloud, basically cloud will charge per request maybe 1 rupee or 2 rupees. Unnecessarily, if I refresh this browser 1,000 times, they have to spend 1,000 rupees for your request from backend. Is it really necessary for them? to make such many requests to backend and pull this data every time? Not required. So whatever data you are seeing here, only first time it will pull. Maybe per day or every day they may change, their dashboard items. Daily ones they might change. So when you load this page, whatever data you are seeing, right, till evening you will see the same data. So they wanted to advertise their products, whichever products they wanted to advertise, all that products has been given here. And during first call only it will be loaded. From next call onwards, it will not fetch from database. Of course, that details might have there in the database. If you use JDBC, if you use JDBC code and if you don't apply any caching, right, for every request, the request will travel from here to backend database and it will bring the response. And your application performance also very poor. Unnecessary many requests if you are getting and handling it. So instead of fetching data from database, if I can apply caching. Caching means on first call, it may fetch your data from your database, and from the next call onwards it will give from temporary memory, like temporary memory in your mission. Also you will be having temp, right? You have temp, so temporarily running apps will be there in the temp, so that whenever you load, you don't have currently permissions to this one, no problem. So when you keep some data into temp or cache, what will happen, your application runs very faster. So if I open paint and if I open this eclipse and all again, if I try to open it back, quickly it will open, because all previously did things, it will keep it into cache, and whenever I open, immediately it will open and it will show the data. Is that means, is it loading from the scratch means? No. Temporarily whatever things you are doing here, right, if I open few classes and if I close it, when I open it again back, all that classes will be shown. So if you see, I have a pure window here by closing all these classes. So if I open classes here, if I see many classes here, so my development is in progress. I got some emergency call, so I thought of shutdowning it. So if I close this Eclipse and if I try to reopen it, again I will see the same classes, same windows are opened here. So my data will be kept into cache to retrieve and show it me again. So instead of making lot of database hits, we can reduce that hits to save the cost or infrastructure, or to save the time, or to improve the performance. Lot of advantages we have with this cache. So that cache by default feature also given in Hibernate. Cache support also we have, right? And if you have, so okay, you are saying we are not writing any SQL queries, we deal with only POSO classes. That is fine. In case if you want to write any SQL queries, I have some complex joins. So I want to join 3 4 tables and I want to pull the information. So can I write native SQL? So native SQL support also they have given. Native SQL support also provided. You can write normal SQL query also. And the advanced Hibernate Spring, Hibernate 4 onwards, they given OGNL features. So we can connect with the graph database and NoSQL database. So many database supports they given, and validation support also given. You can do validations using Hibernate also. Like if you want name not null, email not null, address not null before saving it to the database. If I annotate some annotations on my POSO class, it will strictly verify whether the data is given or not. If data is not given, immediately it will throw errors. So such validation support also has been given. So do we have all this support in JDBC means? Nothing. Okay, even in Spring JDBC also, we don't have any of its features. Only native SQL queries we can run. That is what it meant for all, for simple SQL queries only. And all other features it doesn't have, of course. compile time exceptions also it is avoid. And default connection pool is not provided. It will recommend you to create connection pool. Excuse me. Okay. So if you compare with the JDBC, lot of advantages or features we have. So for rapid application or speed application development, ORM tools will help you a lot rather than simple JDBC. If you go with ORMs, right? ORMs will implement applications very faster rather than simple JDBC. Now let's try to understand more about Hibernate, how it will work. Okay. So if you imagine this is the Hibernate, this is a Hibernate. Okay. So in Hibernate, basically the main important class is session factory. In Hibernate framework, the main important class is session factory class. First, we should learn how to create this session factory class. This session factory is likely data source class, likely your data source class, and not exactly data source, beyond the data source, more than the data source. So data source will hold connections only, whereas session factory will hold many other things. Okay. So now data source will hold connections. Similarly, session factory will hold sessions. From session factory, we can get the sessions. Sessions. We can get sessions from session factory. This is like data source. It will hold lot of sessions. How many sessions? How many connection pool you arranged? That many sessions. Let's say if you arrange connection pool size 10, 10 sessions it will keep it with. So that 10 connections means 10 sessions for us. Okay. So 10 connection pool if you have, so it will create 10 sessions. So what is this session all for? Means for CRUD operations we use session only. This is like your statement, prepare statement, callable statement, everything. This session class. Very important class. In this session class, right, lot of methods we have like save method, update method, delete method, and get method, load method, create query method, create criteria method. All such methods we have in this session class. Session class is very important in Hibernate. Why? Because this session class only will do all your CRUD operations. Save, update, to delete, to select, to all that we do using session only. If you want to execute native SQL or SQL kind of queries very fast, we will call HQL actually. Hibernate query language we use, and criteria is also. Okay, we'll talk about that. So as session is having all these methods, we need that session class. Who will give that session class? Session factory. Session class is very important. Why? Because it is having all the CRUD operation methods. So how I can utilize that session class for doing CRUD operations? Here is my application. I'm getting lot of data from front end. So many front end forms I have. Front end side forms I have. Employee registration page I have. Courses page I have. Student page I have. Students registration page. Lot of forms I have from the front end. What I need to do for all these forms, you will be having multiple controllers, maybe employee controllers, courses controller, and a student controller. You will be having controller layer. You know what it will do. It will read data which is coming from front end. So you will be having controllers. So each may have its own controller. So the data will be submitted to your form will be submitted to your controller, and controllers data will be submitted to service classes. You will be having services, maybe course service, employee service class, and the student service class. Same. So your controllers will connect with service, and services need to connect with DAO. DAO should have all the CRUD operations. So here you will be having students DAO, courses DAO, and employees DAO classes. So your services will be connected with your DAO classes. And in your DAO classes, you will be having all the CRUD operation methods. Each DAO class will have all the CRUD operation methods. Save, update to delete, save, update to delete, select, everything, right? Create, retrieve, update to delete. CRUD means C for create. Create means insert. Retrieve, U for update, D for delete. Any kind of CRUD operation you can have. So if I am using Hibernate here, for doing CRUD operations, if I am using Hibernate here, what I need, as I said, I need a session factory. So in configuration class, you need to create a session factory. In your configuration class, you will be creating session factory bean at the rate bean of SF. Session factory we will create. And everywhere in your DO class, you will be using session factory. Session factory will be auto-wired everywhere. Will be auto-wired everywhere. Your session factory object in your DAOs. What the session factory will do? It can provide sessions. It can provide session. You will be using session factory in CRUD, this CRUD everywhere in your DAOs. So session factory will be auto-wired. Thereafter, how I can map my data which is coming from front end, how I can map to my tables. Basically, my requirement is I want to save data which is coming from employee registration. For this employee registration page, I have a table, employee table. So here I have an EMP table. There I want to save the data. And same way I have courses table. There I want to save the courses data. And I have one more table, students. There I want to save students data. So for me, session factory is ready. Session factory is auto-wired. From here, I need to make CRUD operations. From here, I need to do CRUD operations. Maybe into employee table, courses table, and student table. But before that, you need to do one thing that is mandatory. You have to create one POSO class for each table. You have to create one POSO class for each table. So in addition to all these, you need to create one more class for each table, a POSO class. Here you can create one POSO class. This table equivalent POSO classes. So you need to create models. We will be creating one more package. Under that package, you can create model classes. You can say they all are models. Need not to stereotype them. Models. You need not to stereotype. So there are no stereotypes for models. Simple POSO classes. You may create employee POSO class, employee class, and you can create courses class, and you need student class. What we usually do when we get the data, right? When front end sends data, for example, employee sends the data, employee sends the data, consider you got the data here. From here, I send it to service. From service to when I send it to DAO, DAO need to put this data in whichever form you send it as a simple parameters you send till here, like how you passed here, ID, name, email address, how you passed from your controller, right? So to controller getting ID, name, email, from here it is calling service. and service sending same id name email address to DAO. From now onwards, okay, as soon as you send it to DAO save method id name email address, we are writing direct query and binding this data, or with query parameters we are passing this data here. Now onwards, what you need to do, once you get the data name, id name, email address here, or whatever data here, once you get the data, you need to populate the data into poser class, and you need to use the session factory class save method. There will be a save method in session factory session, so we will use sessions class save method. We'll call session class save method. Via this save method, you need to pass it. Into this save method, you need to pass your employee object. So what the save method will do, it will insert your data into table. So usually whatever data you are getting into the DAO, you have to populate it into your poser class, and you have to call your session class save method for save it. If you want to update the record in the database, instead of populating into save, you need to use update. If you want to delete the record, same poser class you need to pass to delete method. If you want to select the data, we have get and load methods. There are many other methods we have. So we have to use a session factory classes save or update or delete or select methods for doing CRUD operations. For that, what all we need to do is we have to create, first thing we have to create a session factory, and we have to create poser classes. In your configurations, you have to create session factory. Then next you have to create your poser classes. Bus. As soon as you get the data, keep it into poser class and call your session class methods. That's it. You need not to worry about all the CRUD operation stuff using SQL. So that all SQL is avoided here. That all SQLs are avoided here. And now onwards, primary key generation is easy. Creation of tables from application side is easy. What not? You can apply caching also on any table. Let's say courses are not frequently updated. If you go and refresh this Durga Soft website, if they have some dynamic code, imagine, I don't think they have dynamic code from CMS system, they are updating it. But if you imagine, here we have lot of courses details we have. So if you can see here, we have lot of courses details. So if you see my workshop data I have here. So to find out the Spring Boot workshop, if students are continuously hitting it, continuously if they are hitting this application on daily basis, just imagine like 1 lakh requests are getting here to see courses details. So 1 lakh times if I refresh it also, there is no much content is refreshing it. Okay, hardly they might update in the midnight, and that will be reflected for next day. So when I refresh it for 100 times, it is not mandatory that I need to pull that courses information from the database every time. So I can apply cache for courses. If courses page, okay, registration I have, same way students want to see the courses. If I can apply cache here, so automatically whatever data you have in the table, that will be stored into object level only. Here application side only, it will keep your data into temporary memory, into application cache only to put your courses data. So one time it will fetch from there, and it will keep it into cache. So whenever you ask to course data again and again, it will not hit. From here, it will fetch it, and via your CRUD method, it will return to your service, and it will be given to user. So that caches also we can use here. Okay, I'll be showing you all the CRUD operations, okay, in the tomorrow's session. Okay, I just want to give brief about it. Tomorrow I'll give you example of Hibernate. Okay, then Hibernate template also. Okay, so yeah, Hibernate is not difficult. Um, I'll give you from annotations example. Okay, so earlier we used to use XML based approach. Now that is outdated anyway. So tomorrow I'll give you one basic core hibernate example, then hibernate template, which is more easier than the hibernate. That approach also we will see. Okay, and whenever time permits to us, right, we will see cache and all. But that is not part of our hibernate session, I mean spring session, but yeah, we will cover as and when we see the requirement. Okay, but we will see all the CRUD operations tomorrow. Okay.